Okay, let's go.
Hi, my name is Wan Alia Zarifa binti Wan Fauzi. I will be talking about Woodrow Wilson, which is as known as the founding father of idealism in international relations. After the devastation of World War I, he believed that the war could be prevented if countries all working together instead of competing for powers. So Woodson introduced the idea of international cooperation through diplomacy, international law, and also collective security. One of his important contributions were the 14 points, which proposed the principles for achieving a lasting peace after World War I. He also strongly supported the creation of the League of Nations as an international organization designed to resolve disputes peacefully and prevent the future war. Although the League of Nations ultimately failed to stop the World War II from actually happening, Wilson's idea actually greatly influenced the development of the international relations as an economic discipline, and later inspired the creation of the United Nations. All in all, Wilson's idealist principle continue to influence international relations and peace efforts today. Thank you, that's all from me.
Okay, good morning. So today I'm going to talk about the definition and key concept of idealism in international relation. Before we look at the rules and law, let's understand what idealism actually is. At its core, idealism is an international relation theory which argues that a country's foreign policy should be guided by moral values, ethical consideration, and international law rather than just a pure military power or self-interest. While other countries focus on survival and conflict, idealism looks at the world through a lens of hope and cooperation. It tells us that international community can be reformed to achieve long-term and global harmony. The theory, we must look at its four core assumptions. The foundation belief that make idealism work. First, idealism assumes that human nature is inherently good and cooperative. Unlike realists who believe humans are naturally violent and bad, idealists believe humans are rational and capable of altruism. Because countries are run by humans, it means countries are also capable of learning, changing for the better, and working together. To an idealist, war is not a permanent human threat, but it is just a system failure that can be fixed. Second, it's assumed that national interests are not just about military might or force. For an idealist, true security comes from economic prosperity, welfare, and good moral standing. Countries naturally prefer trading over fighting because cooperation brings what we call positive sum or absolute gains, which simply means everyone can win together. Our third assumption is global interdependence. In our modern world, no country is isolated. We are tied together by global trade, technology, and shared challenges like climate change. Because we depend on each other to survive, declaring war on another country is essentially an economic suicide. Fourth and finally, idealism assumes that international anarchy can be managed. Yes, there's no world government or we call global police, but idealists argue that this doesn't mean they have to live in chaos. Countries can bilaterally build international law, agreements, and organizations like United Nations or ASEAN that can act as a framework to manage our behavior, build trust, and solve agreements peacefully. When countries can sit in at the table and state their conflict openly, it reduces the paranoia that usually causes an accidental wars. In short, idealism believes that by using our shared morality, building strong institutions, and trading fairly, a peaceful world is entirely possible. Thank you.
Now, I would like to explain the main arguments of idealism in international relations. The first argument of idealism is that peace is achievable. Unlike realists who believe that conflict is inevitable because states constantly compete for power, idealists argue that war is not inevitable. Instead, they believe countries can prevent conflict through cooperation, diplomacy, and peaceful negotiation. A good example is the United Nations, which often acts as a mediator during international conflicts. Through diplomatic negotiation, many disputes can be resolved without resorting war. Therefore, idealists believe that peace is something some countries can actively build through communication and mutual understanding. The second argument is that cooperation is better than conflict. Idealists believe that countries often share common interests such as economic development, environmental protection, and global security. Instead of competing against one another, they can achieve better outcomes by working together. For example, international cooperation on climate change agreements allow countries to address environmental challenges collectively. Similarly, international trade cooperation benefits economies by promoting mutual growth and development. This shows that cooperation creates win-win outcomes, whereas conflict usually results in losses for all parties involved. The third argument is that international institutions matter. According to idealism, organizations such as the United Nations play an important role in maintaining international peace. These institutions provide a platform for countries to communicate, negotiate, and reduce misunderstanding. As a result, international institutions help create stability and strengthen cooperation among states. Therefore, idealists see this institution as essential for achieving long-term peace. Besides these main arguments, idealism is also characterized by several important principles that guide the behavior of states in international systems. The first characteristic is international cooperation. This means that countries work together to achieve common goals instead of pursuing conflict. One clear example is cooperation on climate change, where countries share knowledge, technology, and resources to reduce global environmental problems. According to idealism, this kind of cooperation promotes trust, mutual understanding, and ultimately contributes to international peace. The second characteristic is international law. Idealists believe that rules and legal agreements help regulate the behavior of states. International treaties establish common standards that countries are expected to follow. By respecting these rules, countries reduce uncertainty, avoid unnecessary conflict, and create a more stable international environment. The third, the third characteristic is democracy and human rights. Idealists argue that governments should respect the rights and freedom of their citizens. International human rights convention encourage countries to protect human dignity and uphold justice. When governments respect human rights and democratic values, societies become more stable and peaceful relations between countries are more likely to develop. In conclusion, they are the main arguments and characteristics of idealism all share one common goal, which is achieving peace through cooperation rather than conflict. Idealists believe that diplomacy, international institutions, international law, and respect for human rights are the foundation of a peaceful and stable international system. That's all for me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum, my name is Nur Alumara binti Muhammad Fakrozi. Now I'm going to continue the presentation about the impact of idealism on international relations. To understand how our global political landscape evolved, we must look back at a pivotal turning point in history. The aftermath of World War I in 1918, it was during this period of immense global devastation that US President Woodrow Wilson introduced his famous 14-point speech. This speech effectively laid the structural foundation for what we know today as Wilsonian idealism. Before this moment, world politics was dominated by a harsh, realist mindset where countries only cared about immediate military power struggle. Idealism, idealism fundamentally shifted this paradigm. It proved that international relations could move away from permanent warfare and look towards structural peace, law, and global cooperation. Now, let us dissect the three most profound impacts this theory has left on our modern international security architecture. First and foremost, idealism directly catalyzed the creation of international organization. The core idea here is simple yet revolutionary. Instead of launching immediate military actions when a dispute arises, sovereign countries need a safe, structured, and institutionalized global space to practice diplomacy and settle arguments peacefully. This exact idealist milestone inspired the birth of the League of Nations. Although the League faced institutional challenge, it directly evolved into the United Nations that we rely on today. In terms of modern international security, this completely changed how states interact. It successfully replaced immediate unilateral warfare with multilateral diplomacy and collective negotiations, proving that institutional framework can mitigate global conflicts. Moving on, the second profound impact, the promotion of self-determination and democracy. Under the old realist world order, large European empires colonized and controlled smaller nations purely for geopolitical power. Woodrow Wilson's idealism aggressively challenged this by arguing that every single nation has an inherent right to self-governance, to protect its own borders, and to choose its own political leaders. This powerful wave of self-determination structurally weakened the colonized empires and legally paved the way for colonized nations, including Malaysia, to claim their rightful independence. Furthermore, idealism proved that spreading democratic governance leads to long-term stability. Because democratic governments are accountable to their citizens, respect human rights, and operate under constitutional law, they are statistically far less likely to declare war on one another. So next, the third and final major impact of idealism in the institutional of global cooperation and open trade. Idealists firmly believe that isolating a nation behind closed borders only breeds suspicion and conflict. Instead, by opening global market and encouraging free trades, states become economically interdependent. In our contemporary era, this economic and political teamwork is more vital than ever. Non-traditional circuit threats such as climate change, cyber terrorism, and global pandemics cannot be defended by military tanks or national borders alone. They are required solid multilateralism. Idealism provides the theoretical and practical framework that allows states to pool their resources, share critical data, and establish binding global agreement like the Paris Agreement to tackle this borderless crisis together. That's all from me. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Muhammad Zahir Farhan bin Zahari, and I would like to present about the lesson learned from idealism in international relation. From studying idealism in international relation, we learn that cooperation between countries is the key to creating long-term peace and stability instead of relying on war. Idealism encourages diplomacy, negotiation, and mutual understanding to solve international disputes. We also learn that international organizations such as United Nations are important because they provide a platform for countries to discuss issues peacefully and promote international law and human rights. However, idealism also has its limitation. In reality, many countries still prioritize their own national interests, security and power, which can make peaceful cooperation difficult. Therefore, the main lesson is that while idealism offers a hopeful vision for world peace, it works best when combined with practical approach to international politics. Overall, idealism reminds us that diplomacy, cooperation, and respect for international law remain essential for building a more peaceful and stable world. Okay, that's all from us. Thank you.